You're gonna have to excuse me because I'm under the weather. 13 degrees in Newark. I was shooting the other day in Newark, Jersey. Delroy Lindo.
So before we get started, I just want to say this, that when Denzel graciously agreed to do this, the word that I got was, he never does this. He never does this.
Never had before.
And this is a testament to the fact that we go back as friends and as fellow students at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco in a few years back.
48 years.
There you go. So I appreciate it.
I learned two things from Delroy that I've never forgotten. The first thing was that a loaf of wheat bread, a jar of honey, and a jar of peanut butter was all you need to survive.
We were students back then,
We were students. And you explained to me, you go over nutritional value and everything, like he was like some health nut. Bastard. He looks exactly the same. Yeah, I mean, he looked like this 50 years ago. He looks just the same now. So get your peanut butter. The second thing I learned was our first. This is at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. Your first, what do you call competition? Your first scene that we do is like big pressure. You're gonna now it's scene doing day. And you do the scenes, and Ed Hastings and what's it got, Bill Ball and everybody
there's people that ran ACT.
Analyze your stuff. And Delroy, this guy's honest truth, Delroy did his scene, and they had no notes. They were like, I don't know if you remember this. They were like, okay. They had notes for me. They had no notes. And that was the second thing that I learned. Like I said, the first thing I learned was the nutritional value of peanut butter and stuff. The second thing I learned, which is really the first, is that there's levels to this thing called acting. I thought I was pretty good. I was, coming from undergrad, hey. But then I saw Delroy, and I was like, whoa, okay, I gotta go home and work.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm just telling the truth. I mean, it's so cliche, one of the finest actors, I don't know how to put it, is purity to Delroy. His discipline, his attention to detail, his spirit. And in those days, he was always, it's like things bothered him, which I admire.
Still do.
They still do. The first thing you say, Delroy, what do you think about that? And his first thing would be, he's always, but I realized, or I came to realize that he had a filter to him that he had to tell the truth. And I began to understand is that's what I was trying to figure out about his acting, is that there's a foundation and a purity and an honesty and an integrity that's undeniable. And something, and something to reach for. So, okay, enough about that. Me. What? Everybody asks this question, but I've never done this before, so I'll ask. How did you get started? What made you want to become an actor?
I will answer that question, but on the heels of what you just said, I've told this story, what I'm about to say. I've said this in various public forums, but I've never said it in front of Denzel, in the company of Denzel. There are two things that I remember, and I will get to your question, I promise. But there are two things that I remember that always stick in my mind about Denzel and how far we go back. We stood, he and I, as students at ACT, we stood on the corner of like Leavenworth and Sutter, downtown San Francisco, and we were talking about our aspirations for our careers. We're students, right? This is, we're young kids, and we're talking about our aspirations for our careers. And one of the things that I remember saying to you was, I don't ever want to be in competition, man. There should be space for all of us. And the fact that I've maintained that ethos is one of the reasons that I've been able to appreciate the extraordinary things that this man has done. Because to the extent that he talks about what he appreciates about me as an actor, right back at you, bro. And that's, you know, that's been proven. And I have to say this, and this is maybe counterintuitive, that would be true, awards or no awards. That feeling, that appreciation would be true, whether you got awards or not. Let me just say one thing. And the second thing, this was really, I was living in New York, you were in town working, and I was going through, I told this story in response to somebody asking me if I'd ever felt like I wanted to stop acting. And I have never felt like I wanted to stop acting, okay? But there was a period in New York where I was kind of New Yorked out. I was up the hill with New York City. And I was walking up Fifth Avenue, actually walking down Fifth Avenue, and there's hordes of people coming at me, and I gotta get out of here. You were doing something in the park, I believe. We connected, and I was telling Denzel about the frustrations I was having at the time. And one of the things I said, D, I gotta get out of here, man. And this man, and I've said this before, and I'll say it to you right now, this man said to me, D, don't leave, man, don't leave. You're too good. You're too good. This will turn around for you. Do not leave. And that was one of the kind of linchpins at that particular point in my career that I got some encouragement from a friend. And it was the difference between, I don't remember what my next job was, but the point was, I hung in there. And part of the reason that I hung in was based on what you told me. So any actors in the room, no matter what, creatives, hang in, no matter what's happening, hang in. To your question, Denzel, to your question, how I got started.
Before you answer that, there is a nominal fee for that.
I'm gonna write you a check, man. It's gonna be in the mail. So I've told this story kind of sort of countless times at this point, and people may have heard this. I was, as a 5-year-old, I was in the nativity play in my elementary school, and that's when I got the bug. Now, truly, that's the true story. But I have to.
What did you play?
Black King. What you think I played?
Jesus.
No, I played one of the kings is a black man. I played, I think, Balthazar, I think. I played one of the kings, we three kings, Aurora, 5 years old. But the interesting thing about that experience was, when I thought about this, it had to do with the affirmation that I got from the teacher who was directing the play. I've told the story before, I will tell it again. The young man who was playing King Herod in the Christmas thing, his name was Michael Penny. And Michael Penny, and we had our lines on these little pieces of cardboard. We would rehearse, and Michael Penny could not he couldn't remember his lines. And at a certain point in the rehearsal process, the teacher had said, watch Delroy. I'm 5 years old, right? And she said to Michael Penny, watch him, the way he, she didn't say projects, I don't remember but the way I was pronouncing, and she said his bearing, the way he carries himself. And I believe, and I went to all white schools, okay? I was born in England, my family's Jamaican. So I was literally the only black student in a all-white school. And I believe that piece of her affirming me like that, it had nothing to do with being seen. She affirmed me in a way that I needed at that time, and that was the bug. That's how I got started. That's when it started.
What made you want to quit? No, I'm serious.
No, fair enough. One gets tired of hearing, no, we don't want you, we want somebody else. Right? Hello. You just get tired of being rejected, right? Now, the moment that I just articulated, I think there were a number of things going on. I wasn't working at the time. Any of us who have spent any time in New York City, you know that New York City can be very overwhelming. I'm living uptown in a rent-controlled apartment. You know, I'm paying $250 a month. And I think I was just momentarily overwhelmed by everything. It was just too much. And I think that I can't necessarily put it down to one particular thing, but I would say that in general, I was just overwhelmed. And at that, it just felt like, you know what, and it wasn't that I wanted to quit, it was, I need a break from this. That's what it was.
What was the longest period that you didn't?
Oh man. Okay, so, Denzel left ACT,
After the first year.
After the first year. I stayed for a second year. I go back to New York. My first gig in New York, 6 weeks I had been in New York. And I got hired to understudy at the Public Theater, the New York Shakespeare Festival, in a play called Spell Number 7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Ntozake Shange, we all know her, or many of us know her from The Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Isn't Enough. I got cast to understudy in Spell Number 7. In that company was Avery Brooks, Sam Jackson, LaTanya Jackson.
I was a replacement.
You were a replacement, that's right. So I get that gig after 6 weeks of being in New York. I then get my next gig to be part of the inaugural company in the Denver Center Theater Company. So I go out to Denver for 2.5 months. I come back to New York, nothing. And when you, again, for the creatives in the room, I thought the world had come to an end. It ended up being 8 months that I couldn't buy a job. I worked as a counselor in a facility with young people who were I don't know what the PC term is, developmentally disabled. I took classes at NYU, but the point is, I thought that the world had come to an end. I thought it was over. Finally, I got a job, but it was 8 months. That's the longest I've ever been without work.
So when did you say, yeah, I can do this, I'm good?
Okay, you know what?
The next week after that?
No, there are these instances, and I gotta say, for me, I put it down to God. Okay, I put it down to God. Amen. So I'll tell you a little story really quickly. And there were a couple. I had a little 1968 VW Bug, right, blue. And I parked my car on Park Avenue. I was going to some appointment. And a bicycle messenger, a brother on a bike, he passed me looked, did a double take, and he came back, and he said, "Hey man, you're an actor, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, I done seen you in a couple movies, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know what I like about you in the movies, man? Don't nobody ever fuck with you in the movies, man." Kind of like life too, man. I took that, and then he went on about his business. For me, that was a message from God. That was an affirmation. Another time, you guys remember, or many of you in the room remember, L.A. Law. Yeah, that was Blair Underwood, L.A. Law, right? And L.A. Law had been on the air for probably a few seasons, and they were recasting. They were recasting some of the actors. Blair was still on it. I got a call to go on audition for L.A. Law, and I'm thinking, I don't look like Blair Underwood. They're not going to hire me. Anyhow, the part that I was auditioning for was a lawyer who was, one of the descriptions was, he never stopped moving. His relationship to the earth was very uncertain, and he just kept moving. The night before my audition, I had this thought. I put rocks in my shoes. I put little pebbles in my shoes so that I would physically be uncomfortable. I go in, I do the audition, and I did a good audition, but I knew I was not going to get the part, and I didn't get the part. But I felt like I had done everything I could in the room. I showed them what I could do, and I had these rocks in my shoes. I leave the audition. I feel like, okay, I did as much as I could do. I knew I was not going to get the part. I didn't get the part. I'm walking down 6th Avenue. I stop at a light. It's a true story. A brother in a vehicle, I don't know if he was a cab driver, I don't remember. He pulled up, the light changed, he stopped, I was about to cross the street. He says, hey man, I done seen you on TV, right? I said, yeah, I've done a couple things. He said, man, this is a true story, y'all. He said, man, I don't know what's happening with your career, but you're good, man. Keep at it. Wow. That was God. And the third thing, I'll tell you, then I'll shut up. The third thing, I was on Edgecombe Avenue, uptown New York. I'm on Edgecombe Avenue. I'm driving my car, I stop at the light, 3 brothers cross the street in front of me. And these 3 dudes, they're walking across the street in front of my car. The one dude does a double take. And he says, hey man, we're proud of you, man. Those kinds of affirmations let me know I'm doing something right. Whether I'm working or not working, broadly speaking, I'm doing something that's right. That's touching people. That's touching audiences. It's touching the people who come to see the work.
Ryan Kruger, talk to us about that collaboration and how it all got started.
Man, so Ryan and I live very close to each other in Oakland, California. We live 15 minutes apart. I'd see him around. He sent me this random text. Do you play piano? He texted me, do you play piano? I say, no, man, but I did this film called Crooklyn, and I did a lot of practicing on the keyboard for that film. I didn't hear anything. Maybe a month and a half later, he texted me again, something random. So finally, we exchanged 2 or 3 texts back and forth. Finally, I said, look here, man, what's this about, man? You're bothering me, man, what's up? He said, I got this project I want you to do. He sends me the script. I read it, and from the very first time I read the script, I had this sense that Okay, is there anybody in the house who has not seen Sinners? Raise your hand if you have not seen Sinners. There's one down here. Who else? One. You got to leave, sis. You got to go. All right. So what I knew from reading the script was that he was using the genre to tell a much larger story. In my opinion, it is not a horror film. I mean, there are horrific components, but he's telling a much larger story, and I saw that when I read this, the very first time I read the script. So I sent him an email, and I said, look, man, I think I see what you're doing here. Are you doing da-da-da-da-da-da-da? And he wrote me back and said, yeah, you got it. And the second thing I said was, you introduce Delta Slim so brilliantly, those first two scenes, and it falls off in the second act, Ryan. And he said to me, I hear you, and we will work on that. So your question, what is it like working with Ryan? He's incredibly collaborative. He was very open, not just with me, with all of us. And I'm talking cast and crew. He's an incredibly collaborative spirit. And that was from the very first time I read the script all the way through when we wrapped the film. Collaborative, and he has a very, very open spirit. He genuinely wants to hear what everybody has to contribute. Now, he may not use it, but he wants to hear what you have to say, and he values that. So he's just a very collaborative spirit.
What's that other black guy? Black man, that last name Lee.
Similarly, yeah. I mean, they
did four.
I've done 4. I kind of sort of, and I felt like you had something to do with this. I don't know if you remember when I auditioned for Malcolm X, we read together. I had done this audition in Los Angeles just for a casting person. And then I came back to New York, and you and I read together. Spike offered me the part. I always feel like you maybe had something to do with this. But Spike trusted me. He had a regard for me as an actor. And as a result of his trust for me, there's just an openness. The lines of communication are open. That final scene in Malcolm X, when you come visit me in the SRO.
I don't even remember.
Yeah, you can.
I haven't seen that movie since.
Neither have I. But Malcolm comes to visit my character, West Indian Archie, in the room. And
when you down and out.
Yes. Okay. And in the script, the description of my character, West Indian Archie, was West Indian Archie is near death. And I said to Spike,
oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I said to Spike, what man? What does that mean? He said, man, I don't know. You work on it. But listen, he was exhibiting a trust in me. He knew that I would come up with something. I decided that the character had a stroke.
Right.
And the reason I decided stroke was it would enable me to work on a physical disability, but still be able to talk and still be able to do the scene. So I went to Kings County Hospital in Brooklyn. They have a ward there specifically geared to people who are recovering from stroke. And I just stood in the corner and I just watched. And I went there maybe 3 or 4 times before we started production. You guys were shooting already. I hadn't started filming yet. And I just watched. And so I picked up I just started to kind of get it in my body how I wanted to approach this condition of having a stroke. There was one gentleman on the ward, and he had this thing that he did. I didn't copy it, but I kind of translated what I saw him doing when I did this thing.
Right.
And I came up with that. So by the time we were ready to shoot the scene, I was ready to work. Now, Preston Holmes, producer, you and Angela were doing the scene in the History Museum. And the scene...
Walking around and stuff?
Yes. And the scene ran long. And one of the producers came to me and said, man, we can't do the scene with you and Denzel. We're going to have to reschedule that. And I said, man, I can't. I was scheduled to go to Los Angeles, do a reshoot on something else. I said, I can't, man. It's now 2:30 in the morning. We have to move production downtown to this SRO to shoot this scene. By the time we get down there, it's like 4 in the morning. Jaws were tight, y'all. They were mad at me. Not Denzel, Spike, Preston, they were tight. So I'm in character, right?
Sound like you needed to be too. Get some sympathy.
So I'm working on this physical condition, which is causing me to move very slowly. I get a knock on my camper. We're ready for the scene. We're ready. And I get up and I'm walking to set. And I'm not trying to cause a problem. I'm trying to just connect with the work. Jaws were tight, y'all. Get your ass on the set. So Denzel and I started to work. And I found this out after the fact. Spike was like, what is he doing? Ernest Dickerson said, leave him alone.
The DP,
Director, because he was seeing.
Cinematographer.
The cinematographer. And when Denzel and I started to work, well, you see the scene. It's one of the pieces of work I'm most proud of. The whole film, but certainly that scene. But to your point, ultimately, Spike left me alone, and he allowed us to do the work. And Spike and Ryan have that in common in terms of my experience working with them, and that is an openness and a trust that they have in me, and allow as long as I'm serving the story, obviously. But there's that trust and there's that regard that we experience when we're working together.
All right, I'll get to sentence, but what have you not done that you would like to do? What areas would you?
I always said I really wanted to play a Marcus Garvey type character. Yeah. Marcus Garvey, starting the UNIA in the teens, in the early 1900s. I would have loved to have played a Marcus Garvey type character in film. So your next film that you direct, you heard it here first.
Well, here's something you've probably heard before in your career. Well, Delroy, we're going in another direction.
Yes, I've heard that a few times.
No, we love you, but we're gonna go in another direction.
Can I say something, man? You go ahead.
Well, what I wrote down was, how did you prepare? You kind of told me. Musically, how did you prepare?
Great question, and it was one of the richest parts of this experience for me. First of all, Ryan sent me 2 books. He sent me Blues People by Amiri Baraka, who at the time he wrote the book was known as Leroy Jones, and he sent me Blues People, and it was Deep Blues by a man named Robert Palmer. I read those books twice, all about not just specific musicians, but I got an insight into the lives, the lifestyles, who these men were away from the music. So I read those books twice. Then I just submerged myself, Denzel, in the music. Cats like Son House, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Ike Turner, and I know Ike has a bad rap, but he was a brilliant musician. I looked at a lot of documentaries, watching not only these performers in their element with the music, but also you start to glean, you start to get a sense of just rhythmically. And I just submerged myself in that music. And I submerged myself in just watching the way they move, the way they talk. Looking at documentaries about people from the Mississippi Delta, just exposing myself to that culture and hoping that if nothing else, things would kind of rub off on me by osmosis. And one of the most rewarding scenes in the film, the scene in the car, where I'm telling the story about my man Rice being lynched, and what happened at the very end of the scene when I kind of went into the hollow, and how audiences have said to me over and over and over again that in that moment they're seeing where the blues comes from. And that is, man, that's why I went to acting school, y'all. That's for those kinds of affirmations from audiences.
Some studio kind of question. But this is interesting. Ryan said that the film was about exploring the price of freedom.
So one of the things that struck me first reading the script, and I had a very visceral response to this, because what I thought I was seeing in this script was the result of this self-sustaining, not without pain, but a community that is self-sustaining. And what I saw when that community gets infiltrated, we see the result of what happens when this community gets infiltrated.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
When we've all seen it except you. So you know what you gotta do, right? When the vampires show up and they identify Sammy and the gift that he has, and the guy says, just give me Sammy. Just give me Sammy, I'll leave y'all alone. This is not a community that is without pain, but it's self-sustaining. And one of the brilliant components in the film with Ryan as writer, he takes, 40 minutes to establish each of the main characters in their element before the vampires show up. So in doing that, he's establishing this is this person in their element. This is this person in their element. And he does that with all the main characters. And then we see what happens when these outside forces come along. And indeed, what they're threatening is not only our freedom, well, very much our freedom, the vibrancy of this community. And in that sense, I believe that Sinners is a very contemporary story. And they're the kinds of things that I discussed with Ryan, and he said, yeah, you're right on. This is what I'm trying to do. This is the story I want to tell.
What y'all want to ask? Somebody raise their hand right there. I see. Speak loud.
All right, this is more of a little story. I'll make it quick, I promise. It's a testament to what you said about his attention to detail. First movie I ever worked on was a movie called The Last Castle.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You played Wheeler. I played Wheeler's aide. So basically, I followed you around the set for a week or so. The very first scene that I worked on was a scene where you and James Gandolfini, rest in peace, were arguing outside the prison. And then you and I get in the car and drive off. So there's no cameras in the car or anything. So you guys are rehearsing the scene and I'm watching it. And it looked like you guys were having this discussion, right? So I'm thinking, man, that kind of hard with it. So we do a take, we get in the car, drive off, no cameras in the car. You turn to me and go, that man's an asshole.
In character, right?
What?
In character.
In character.
Yes.
Well, I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that?
So I'm like, oh, they're really hard. We do another take, get in the car, drive off. Again, no cameras, nothing in the car. The director is yelling, cut, because I can hear it on the radio. You turn to me, that man's an asshole. I'm like, I got this. He's acting, even though the camera's not on. We do another take, get in the car.
All right, make this short now.
Come on.
You got one more take.
Denzel Washington, the director. Go ahead. Real quick. Go ahead.
Turns to me again, he goes, that man's an asshole. I look at him, I said, yeah, you're right. He looked at me like, fool, if you don't shut up and let me do my work. I just wanted to tell that little story because I was so impressed that you were still doing your thing, even though there was no camera.
God bless you. God bless you.
Yes, go ahead, Molly. Yes, down. Speak loud, speak loud.
Okay, I just had a question for the vampires, and this is just based on like as you as an actor and also reading the script. The vampires that took everyone's memories and accumulated that and needed to continue feeding. What was Sammy's like representation? Was he the devil's? Like, is the barter with your soul? Like, I feel like I'm missing something as an element.
When you say Sammy, you mean Preacher Boy, right? The part that Miles. Ooh, I'm not sure I can answer your question, but Preacher Boy, Sammy, represents the future, not only of this music, but by extension of the culture. And that's what these people want.
Feeding on, right?
That's what they're attempting to feed
But
off.
then what does killing them do? Does that make the future infinite? Is that the way?
It makes the future infinite. Now, on some level, you kind of sort of have to ask that question of Ryan as the storyteller, but that's my interpretation of it.
Follow up. What does that represent now? Is that AI? Like, I was contributing to AI.
This is what I want to say to you, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. This is what I want to say to you. This is the beautiful thing about audience reaction responses to sinners. Whatever it means to you, and that's not a cop-out.
Yeah. No.
Whatever it means to you, and the extraordinary thing about this film, and the fact that audiences have gone back and seen this film 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I talked to somebody a week and a half ago, I swear to God. This person said, I've seen the film 10 times. And what it is that audiences are gleaning, are getting different, they're having different responses to this multi-layered narrative. And far be it from me to tell you or anybody how to respond to that.
No, I just want to know your interpretation.
I always tell people when they say, what do you want people to get from this film? I say it depends upon what they brought to it. It depends upon what they brought to it.
That's right. Amen.
I may not pronounce this right. I'll say it in one word. Wumi.
Wumi. Oh. Wumi. Playing Annie.
Good answer.
Well, I mean, first of all, a brilliant actor. She does a brilliant job. She's luminous, and Wumi brings all of that light to her work. What's interesting as a true artist, there are certain things about herself that she doubts. But she brings that vulnerability, that openness, those channels of humanity to what she does with Annie. And she's brilliant in the film. What can I say? I mean, she's extraordinary in the film. And she's also bringing fundamentally, elementally herself to the work. Because if Wumi were here, she talks about, Wumi is of Nigerian, she's born in Nigeria, raised in England. And she talks about how she was at odds with certain parts of her culture. And since Sinners, she now is able to speak, not Wolof. Yoruba, thank you. And she's been much more conversant with those aspects of her own culture as a result of doing this film. But she would not have done that, I don't believe, had she not placed so much of herself in the process. And that's partially why the work is so brilliant.
He goes from, Delta, goes from troubled drunk to an almost paternal figure for the group. Talk about the evolution.
The evolution is from the time that I'm introduced to Sammy, and essentially disregarding him. He don't know about the blue. But then he starts to play. He starts to exhibit his gifts, and there's a gradual dawning. Unfortunately, it didn't make it into the film. There's a scene where he and I are at the piano, and we're going back and forth. I'm doodling on the piano, and he's doodling on the guitar. And I say to him, there's this epiphany that I have, and I say, man, young man, you the future. It didn't make it into the film, but it wasn't because of my acting material. But
you're not conceited, you're convinced.
But the recognition of the fact that the depth of this young man's gifts and the fact that he is the messenger, he is the person who will take the music and by extension the culture forward, and recognizing that that's what these people want and that's what needs to be protected. And there's a growing awareness that that's what has to be protected. So that's possibly where the paternal thing that you mentioned comes from. And when I say, if the devil comes up in here tonight, he got to go through me. And then I said, and that goes for everybody in here. So there's that evolution of understanding, recognizing what must be protected and preserved. And that goes directly to why I choose to sacrifice myself at the end. That was not in there. That's part of what we came up with together to articulate Delta's journey through the narrative.
There's an old saying, if the devil leaves you alone, then you know you're doing something wrong.
Okay. And the devil incarnate, that is represented by Remick and all of his acolytes. And when he says, just give me Sammy, just give me Sammy, and now you can't have Sammy. So it's to answer your question, Denzel, it's a growing recognition of the value of this young man, and by extension, the value of our culture, of what must be done to protect at all costs the existence of our culture.
Raise hand. Right here in front.
What was your biggest obstacle with character development?
What was your biggest obstacle with character development?
Talk about the piano, but honestly, you personally.
Well, okay, it was actually my relationship to the keyboard, because what I came to understand and I had some incredible teachers. We shot in New Orleans, and there were musicians that came through to help me, and I understood, and this was very challenging for me, that it's a certain part of my brain. There are musicians in the house, right? Yeah. So you guys may take this for granted, but one is using a different part of one's brain to engage the keyboard. And that was challenging for me, down to just doing the finger exercises that they were giving me. And I really had to work on that. That was majorly challenging for me.
I see you in the white shirt back there in the back. Yes, speak loud.
Can you talk about how great Mr. Lindo is in clockers?
Can I talk about it? No.
Here's what I'll say about Clockers. It's a very, very underrated. Thank you. It's a very underrated film. Because I've always believed, because of the subject matter, it's harsh. It's dealing with harsh reality. But I've always felt that Clockers is a very underrated film. But thank you. I appreciate it.
But now why? Why do you feel like it's underrated?
I think it's underrated because it deals with drug culture, right? It deals with how these young kids are used and misused and ultimately destroyed. One of the final scenes in that, if you remember in that scene, one of the kids who's on the block in the projects turns up dead, and my boy. That was played by Tom, he was killed.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and the kid on the bike comes up on him and just shoots him. So there's that kind of violence in the film, and I think perhaps for some audiences they just didn't want to go to a movie theater and watch that, I think. But in terms of the work that's in the film, the cinematography, it's a wonderful piece.
Was that Ernest on that one?
No, it was not. I can't remember the brother's name.
Yeah, brown skin brother.
Yes.
Yeah, he took over for it.
And he's palette.
Who is it? Does somebody know the name? Oh, I thought somebody said.
Not Malik.
Oh yeah, Malik.
Malik.
Yeah, I think so.
But anyhow, the color palette he used, just technically, there are a lot of really extraordinary things in that film, but I think that the subject matter maybe turned people off. But I'm really proud of that film, and thank you for bringing that up.
This section on the outside, I'm missing the side. Somebody raise your hand. Oh, anybody back there in the back? I said on the side, girl. This side over here. Okay, one and then two back there. Go ahead, stand up. Real loud so we can hear you.
What was your favorite aspect of playing this character? What was your favorite aspect?
Playing Delta Slim?
Yes.
It's different. Thank you. What was the favorite aspect of playing Delta Slim? It's virtually impossible, and I'm not being facetious here. It's impossible for me to identify one thing, because the totality of the totality of my investment in the work, and also how the work has been responded to. I view that as a whole, and for me to kind of identify one thing, it's virtually impossible for me to do that.
Here's what I also learned from Delroy as an actor. The universal stems from the specific. He was always very specific. That's what I'll say. Somebody else over here.
Universal is
No, somebody else. I said second. I can't see.
It was the young lady.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yes.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I've been watching you forever, so just very, very nice to see you in public.
God bless you.
So thank you for being here.
God bless you.
And
Thank you.
then, as far as the instruments go, did you play the piano?
Yes.
All of it?
And the harp and the harmonica.
Harmonica. What other instruments do you play? And did you start with music first or acting first? Or did you always do both, and did you learn later? So I was very impressed watching you all.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to know if you played any more and sang.
Right. I think the question is, do I play any more instruments other than the piano?
And how many?
And how many?
So impressive.
So again, not being facetious, because a lot of people have asked me, "Are you really playing the piano in that film? Are you really playing the harmonica?"
Yeah.
And evidently, you believe that I'm playing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave you with that reality.
We're asking us to wrap up. So last question from this section on the outside. I see you right there. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, she jumped up before you. She jumped up.
I was standing already.
Nice and loud. Last question.
Well, can you talk a little bit? I heard from you're talking about Malcolm X that you were coming onto set, you were already in character, you were already in the physicality of it. can you talk about the collaboration with the other actors and Sinners? Were you guys discussing?
Man.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question. Thank you for that question. This cast in Sinners, and it stemmed from Ryan. You know, the openness that I talk about, Ryan having, and it felt, and you know this is a director, man. You set, the director sets the tone on the set. And, excuse me, there was an openness that stemmed from Ryan that then filtered into the actors. And this cast of actors, we were friends. You know, Mike tells a story, Mike B tells a story about how one of my first days on set, he wanted to just kind of chop it up with me. And he approached me and he said, I said, no. And he said, when he saw that from me, he understood, oh shit, this is what we doing? Oh, okay. And Mike says, it set for him, and I can't talk for Mike, but I've heard him say this, it set the bar for him in terms of how we would all work. On the set, there was space for us to do our work individually, but as an ensemble of actors, there was also a real connection. And I believe the kind of synchronicity, the connection between all of us is part of what you're seeing in the film. There was space for us. We each have different ways of working, but we also, as human beings together working on this project, we also, we were able to be open and share with each other. And I can tell you, I mean, and Dee, you're probably similar, and you guys know this, working, whether you're working in theater, whether you're working in film, whatever, it's work. I mean, you're not there to, it's not a social, we're working. But inside that paradigm, that work, we're human beings and we share and we connect. And that's what happened with Sinners, each and every one of the actors. And those connections, I believe, found their way into the body of the work.
As it relates to awards and all that kind of stuff, my mother used to always say, man gives the award, God gives the reward. Delroy Lindo has rewarded us with a brilliant performance.
Yes.
And I want to back up because the stage belongs to him. Ladies and gentlemen, Delroy Lindo.
It's a special coming from this man, and that without an ounce of, obsequiousness, just respect. So the fact that those words come from this particular individual mean the world. God bless y'all.
I'll be selling peanut butter and honey sandwiches.